Hi guys, I'm Aaron from Big Tiny World Travel, world traveler and videographer from the United States. And I completed a 9-month trip around the world with my wife Brianna back in 2019. Namibia was the second country on our trip and it was one of the most memorable. Etosha National Park is one of the highlights of this vast country, and I'm here to show you how to spot amazing wildlife inside this park. Let's get started. When we first checked in at the south end of Etosha National Park, the guard thought he misheard when we told him we were planning to camp in the park for 6 nights. While much longer than their average visitors, who only tend to spend 3 to 4 days in the park, we had the luxury of time on our hands. With that time, we were fortunate enough to discover all the best places in the park to spot wildlife. We arrived in Namibia during the dry season of winter, where water is concentrated in watering holes throughout the park. With limited areas of water, a variety of wildlife is easier to spot. One of the most common was elephants. We didn't go a single day in Etosha National Park without seeing at least a dozen or more elephants. With over 2,500 individuals in the park, that shouldn't be too surprising. While it was rare to see individuals roaming the tall grasses along the side of the road, we frequently saw large herds at the watering holes. Sometimes they would already be there by the time we pulled up. Other times they crashed the scene, scattering lesser herds of springbok or impala. Either way, park yourself at a nearby watering hole, especially in the afternoon, and wait for a bit. You'll know they're on their way when you see the growing dust cloud. After the gates closed at sunset, we had our own watering hole at our camp. This is our nightly television, safely above the majestic giants below. Much of the time in Etosha was spent on the road. It is over 100 miles or 166 kilometers from one end of the park to the other. We tried to break up the drives with many stops along the way. Brianna stayed in the back seat so she could easily slide to either side of the truck if we spotted any wildlife while we were driving. Like elephants, we were excited to see real zebras in the wild. Unlike zoos, we could see large herds of zebras in one place. And it wasn't until we saw these larger groups that we truly understood how their stark black and white pelts serve as camouflage. We saw zebras daily at almost every watering hole throughout our 7 days in Etosha. Like elephants, they sometimes arrived at the scene after we settled in watching other animals. Oftentimes, they would walk right in front of our truck. We had no issues capturing some great close-ups of these cute mohawk sporting faces. We saw giraffes every day in Etosha. Though they don't show up in the same droves as elephants or zebras, we had no problem spotting them. Unlike other animals, we seldom saw these skyscrapers at watering holes. Instead, these were mostly happenstance encounters. Many were right on the side of the road, munching on the trees. The best way to find giraffes is to look for taller vegetation. We saw them mostly in the mornings and in the later afternoons, occasionally midday. Drive around, especially off the main road, and you should encounter them. Another common animal in Etosha are wildebeests. Considered one of the ugly 5, anyone who is familiar with the Lion King would recognize these herd animals. They are also technically a type of antelope, and though some consider them unsightly, I found them to be quite photogenic. We came across several individuals throughout our many drives in the park, usually in the afternoon, and we saw a few small herds at a watering hole here and there. We didn't see a stampede, but we did see some very large herds. Everyone wants to see rhinos when visiting Africa, right? Right up there with elephants, they command a sense of majestic beauty few other animals can emulate. Sadly, these gorgeous creatures are still critically endangered. Poaching counts have been very slowly decreasing, but 50 to 60 are still illegally killed every year. And ironically, poachers hunt them for their horns, something that is a renewable resource. A rhino's horn will continue to grow much like claws or fur. Also, the horns don't actually have the magical medicinal powers they're believed to have. Etosha National Park is home to around 1,700 black rhinos, about a third of all that remain in the world. While that number might sound promising as far as spotting them, they tend to be more solitary and nocturnal than elephants, making them less commonly seen. We were fortunate enough to see a few of them during our time there. What an incredible sight! The ostrich amazed us with their size and are much larger than they seem. Perhaps it's because I've only seen them on television or from afar in zoos. I just didn't expect them to be that big. Average male heights start at almost 7 feet tall. We also didn't get to see them running at full speed, but what little we did see assured us this isn't a bird to mess with. An ostrich can reach a speed of 70 kilometers per hour. This is not only the fastest land speed of any bird and the fastest of any two-legged creature, but also faster than most birds can fly. We spotted these just off the side of the road or at the many watering holes around Etosha. What an amazing creature! One of the animals that amazed me the most were the Oryx for their uniqueness. We had no idea what these gorgeous animals were when we first saw them. With their black faces and their striking straight horns, they were an imposing sight. We grew more accustomed to them, especially since they seemed to become more frequent during our stay. We saw Oryx mostly at the watering holes around the park. Later during our trip, we saw Oryx in the Namib Desert, and we even had Oryx steak at Okonjima. It tasted very much like beef without any of the layers of fat. The one animal we wanted to see most in Etosha were the big cats. We saw these lions way off in the distance, but they were very far from us. We learned that the best time to find them was at sunrise or sunset, and that most were on the west end of Etosha. I've always dreamed of seeing lions, cheetahs, and leopards on an African safari. Since we missed seeing the big cats in Etosha, we took matters into our own hands and went to the one place that would guarantee we saw at least some of these kitties, Okonjima Nature Reserve. Okonjima is home to the Africa Foundation, and every day they strive to stop the hunting of these animals, relocate those in danger, and research and track populations to better understand their behaviors. At the reserve, they also welcome guests to experience safaris to see these gorgeous predators, spread awareness of the project, and raise funds for research and care. We gladly support the efforts of the Africa Foundation to help protect these animals and provide a sustainable way for visitors to see them. Perhaps on the next visit to Etosha, we will have better luck and be able to see the big cats. So those are my tips for spotting wildlife in Etosha. What are yours? If you have been there before, please make sure to leave your tips and advice in the comment box below this video. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Big Tiny World for new travel videos published every week. We are Big Tiny World Travel, and we will talk to you again soon.